Claire Bennett stared at the eviction notice taped to her bookstore door, her hands trembling as she read the final warning. 3 months behind on rent, and her grandmother's medical bills were piling up faster than she could count. In the small, independent bookstore that had been in her family for 30 years was about to disappear forever, Miss Bennett. A woman in a pristine suit approached, her heels clicking against the sidewalk. I'm Lauren Blake, executive assistant to Ethan Wallace. We have a proposition for you. Claire's heart skipped. Ethan Wallace, the billionaire CEO whose empire dominated half of Manhattan's skyline. What could he possibly want with her failing bookstore? $15,000, Lauren said without preamble, sliding a folder across the small cafe table where they sat. In exchange for 1 weekend of your time, Claire opened the folder, her eyes widening at the contract inside.
You want
Me? To pretend to be his girlfriend? Fiancée? Actually? For his brother's wedding, Mr. Wallace requires someone authentic. Someone who won't be swayed by his wealth or status. Lauren's smile was sharp. Someone who can make it believable. Claire thought of her grandmother lying in the hospital bed of the bookstore that held 3 generations of memories. Of the children who came in every Saturday for story time. $15,000 would save everything she cared about. What's the catch? Claire asked, though she already knew she had no choice. No catch. Just 3 days of perfect acting. You'll be briefed on his background, his family, on his preferences. All you have to do is smile, hold his hand, and convince everyone that Ethan Wallace is capable of love. The irony wasn't lost on Claire. The man who owned half the city needed to pay someone to pretend to love him. She signed the contract with hands that barely shook, knowing she was about to enter a world where nothing was real except the money that would save her grandmother's legacy. Within hours, she was standing in Ethan's penthouse, looking out at a view that cost more than most. People made in a lifetime, wondering what she had gotten herself into. Ethan Wallace was nothing like Claire expected. She had imagined a cold, calculating man who spoke only in business terms. Instead, she found someone who poured wine with careful precision and listened when she spoke about her grandmother's bookstore. You don't have to pretend to find me interesting, he said, settling into the chair across from her. This is a business arrangement, Claire replied, tucking her legs under her, because I was going to ask why someone like you needs to hire companionship. His laugh was unexpected, genuine. Someone like me, rich, successful, reasonably attractive. She took a sip of wine, studying his face. What's the real story, Ethan? For a moment, his carefully constructed mask slipped. My ex-fiancée will be at the wedding. Sabrina has a talent for creating scenes, and I refuse to give her ammunition. Claire saw something vulnerable in his eyes, something that reminded her of the children who came to her bookstore seeking comfort in stories. What did she do? She loved my bank account more than me. When I ended it, she tried to destroy my reputation. The press had a field day. His voice grew quiet. I swore I'd never put myself in that position again, so you hire someone instead. At least you're honest about your motivations. Claire set down her wine glass. The record? I don't care about your money. Probably your money. And her bookstore. That's the only reason I'm here. Something shifted in Ethan's expression. That's exactly why Lauren chose you. They spent the evening rehearsing their story, how they met, their first date, the proposal that never happened. But somewhere between the scripted answers and careful choreography, Claire began to see glimpses of the man beneath the CEO facade. He was funnier than she expected, more thoughtful, and surprisingly gentle when he helped her practice walking in the heels Lauren had provided. You're better at this than I thought you'd be, Claire said as they stood on his terrace, the city. Lights twinkling below them. Better at what? Being human. The wedding was tomorrow. And Claire found herself wondering if she was prepared for what she might discover about Ethan Wallace here about herself. The resort in the Hamptons was everything Claire had imagined. Wealthy people's gatherings would be elegant, pristine and suffocating. She stood beside Ethan in the receiving line, his hand warm against her back as they greeted his family. Must be Claire, Ryan Wallace said, embracing her like an old friend. I haven't seen my brother this relaxed in years. Ethan's mother, Victoria, was less welcoming. Her handshake was firm, her smile surgical. Refreshing to meet someone from humble beginnings. I prefer authentic beginnings, Claire replied smoothly, not missing the way Ethan's jaw tightened. The real test came during the rehearsal dinner. Sabrina arrived fashionably late, her red dress designed to turn heads. She was stunning in the way that money could make anyone stunning. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect smile that never reached her eyes. "Ethan," she purred, air kissing his cheek. "You look wonderful, and this must be your friend." "Fiancé?" Claire corrected, extending her hand. "Claire Bennett." Sabrina's grip was surprisingly strong. "How lovely. I don't think I've seen you at any of the usual events." "I don't attend the usual events," Claire said. "I run a bookstore." Quaint. Sabrina's laugh was like breaking glass. "I'm sure that's very fulfilling." Throughout dinner, Claire felt the weight of scrutiny from every table. She was acutely aware of using the wrong fork of her dress, being less expensive than the others, of being an outsider in a world where belonging was measured in zeros on bank statements. But then Ethan's hand found hers under the table, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. When she looked at him, his eyes held something she hadn't expected: pride. Not in her performance, but in her. "You're doing great," he whispered. "I'm not doing anything," she whispered back. "I'm just being myself." "I know," he said, and the way he looked at her made her forget they were acting. Later, as they walked along the beach, Claire kicked off her heels and let the sand slip. Between her toes, the moon cast silver paths across the water, and for the first time all weekend, she felt like she could breathe. "Your family is interesting," she said. "That's a polite way of saying they're judgmental. Your brother seems nice." "Ryan's the good one, always has been." Ethan's voice carried old pain. "He follows his heart." "I follow spreadsheets." Claire stopped walking. "Is that what you think?" "It's what I know." She turned to face him, this man who had hired her to pretend to love him, who was so convinced of his own unlovability that he'd rather pay for affection than risk his heart. "You're wrong, Claire. You put me through college, didn't you?" "The scholarship I received senior year. Wallace Foundation." His silence was answer enough. "And the children's reading program at the library. And the small business loans that kept half the shops in my neighborhood afloat during the pandemic." She stepped closer. "You don't follow spreadsheets, Ethan. You follow your conscience. You just hide it better than most people." For a moment, she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he stepped back, his walls slamming into place. "We should go back," he said. "Big day tomorrow." As they walked back to the resort, Claire wondered if she was falling for a man who was determined to remain fallible, or if she was simply excellent at her job. The wedding ceremony was beautiful, but Claire barely saw it. She was too busy watching Ethan watch his brothers say vows that came from the heart, not from a script. When Ryan kissed his bride, Claire felt Ethan's hand tighten around hers. "Right. Look happy," she whispered. "They are," he replied, but his voice held a longing that made her chest ache. The reception was a blur of congratulations, dancing, and champagne. Claire found herself genuinely enjoying conversations with Ethan's cousins, sharing stories about the bookstore and her grandmother's recovery. For hours, she forgot she was acting. The spell broke when Sabrina cornered her in the ladies' room. "You're good," Sabrina said, reapplying her lipstick in the mirror. "I almost believed it myself." "Believed what?" "That you actually care about him." Sabrina's reflection smiled coldly. "But we both know this is about money." "How much is he paying you?" Claire's blood ran cold. "I don't know what you're talking about, please. I did my research. Your bookstore is failing, your grandmother's medical bills are mounting, and suddenly you're engaged to one of the richest men in New York." Sabrina turned to face her. "I respect the hustle, really. But don't mistake a business transaction for love. You don't know anything about us." "I know Ethan. He's incapable of real intimacy. He'll use you to get through this weekend pay you handsomely, and then disappear back into his fortress of solitude." Sabrina's smile was pitying, just like he did with me. Claire left the bathroom on shaking legs. She found Ethan on the terrace, loosening his tie as he stared out at the ocean. "Having fun?" she asked, trying to keep her voice light. "As much as one can at these things." He turned to her, and his expression softened. "You've been incredible tonight. Everyone loves you. Even your mother. Especially my mother, though she'd never admit it. He reached for her hand. Claire, I want you to know, stop. The word came out sharper than she intended. Don't say anything you'll regret tomorrow. Confusion flickered across his face. What's wrong? Nothing. Just I know what this is. We both do. She forced a smile. I'm good at my job, that's all. Something died in his eyes, right? Of course. They danced the last dance in silence, moving together perfectly while everything between them crumbled. When the evening ended, Ethan walked her to her room like a gentleman. Didn't try to kiss her goodnight. Lauren will transfer the payment tomorrow, he said formally. Thank you for your professionalism. After he left, Claire sat on her bed, still wearing her bridesmaid blue dress, staring at the ocean through her window. She had saved her grandmother's bookstore. She had lost something else entirely, something she hadn't even known she wanted until it was gone. Her phone buzzed with a text from her grandmother. How was the wedding, sweetheart? Hope you're having fun? Claire typed back. It was perfect. I'll tell you all about it when I get home. Some lies, she realized, were told to protect the people we love. Others were told to protect themselves. She was no longer sure which category hers fell into. 3 months later, Claire's bookstore was thriving. The rent was paid, her grandmother was recovering well, and the children's reading program had expanded to include art classes. Everything was exactly as it should be, so why did she feel like something was missing? She was shelving new arrivals when Lauren Blake walked through the door. Miss Bennett. Lauren's smile was different this time, less sharp, more human. I have something that belongs to you. She handed Claire a check. It was for $15,000, made out to Leaves and Tales Bookstore. I don't understand. Claire said, Ethan never cashed the payment we made to you. He wanted to make sure it went directly to the bookstore. Lauren paused. He also wanted me to give you this. It was a small, wrapped package. Inside, Claire found a first edition of The Secret Garden, her grandmother's favorite book, the one they'd had to sell to pay for medication months ago. He's been miserable, Lauren said quietly. For 3 months, he's done nothing but work and stare out his office window. I've never seen him like this. It was a business arrangement, Claire said, though her voice lacked conviction.
That was
it. Lauren placed another item on the counter, a manila envelope. He's been funding children's literacy programs across the city. Anonymously. He started the week after the wedding. Claire opened the envelope. Inside were dozens of photographs of children reading, learning, laughing in libraries and schools she recognized, all funded by the Wallace Foundation. He's not good at saying how he feels, Lauren continued, but he's excellent at showing it. That evening, Claire found herself standing outside Ethan's building, holding the first edition book. The doorman recognized her and waved her through without question. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt eternal. When the doors opened, Ethan was standing there as if he'd been waiting. Claire. Her name sounded like a prayer on his lips. You bought back my grandmother's book. I bought back your grandmother's book. He stepped aside to let her in. Also, may have purchased the building your bookstore is in. Your rent is now permanently frozen at what you were paying 3 years ago. Ethan, I know what you're going to say, that this is about money, about control, about me trying to buy something I can't have. He ran his hands through his hair. But you're wrong. This is about me being terrible at saying that I love you. Claire's heart stopped. You don't love me. You barely know me. I know you take your shoes off the moment you get comfortable. I know you laugh at terrible jokes and cry during children's movies. I know you sacrifice everything for the people you love, and you think you're not worth sacrificing for in return. He stepped closer. I know that for 3 days, you made me believe I was worth loving, and I've been trying to figure out how to deserve that feeling ever since. It wasn't real, Claire whispered. It was the most real thing I've ever felt. He reached for her hands. I hired you to pretend to love me, Claire. But I don't want to pretend anymore. She looked at this man who had built walls around his heart so high that he'd forgotten how to let anyone in. What are you asking me? I'm asking you to take a chance on something that isn't scripted, something that might fail spectacularly, but might also be extraordinary. His voice was vulnerable, hopeful. I'm asking you to fall in love with me for real this time. Claire thought about fairy tales and happy endings, about the stories she read to children who believed in magic. Then, She thought about her grandmother's words. The best stories are the ones where people choose love even when it's scary. I already have, she said softly. When he kissed her, it was nothing like their rehearsed affection. It was desperate and grateful and entirely genuine. It was two people who had found each other in the most unlikely way, choosing to trust in something bigger than contracts and fear. 6 months later, Claire stood in the same bookstore where everything had started, wearing a simple white dress and holding a bouquet of wildflowers. Ethan waited for her at the makeshift altar they'd set up between the fiction and children's sections. Surrounded by friends, family, and dozens of books that had witnessed their story unfold. "You know," she said when they reached the part where they exchanged vows, "I used to think fairy tales were just stories." "What changed your mind?" he asked. "I fell in love with a man who hired me to pretend to love him," she said, and discovered that sometimes the most beautiful truth starts with the most necessary lie. They kissed, surrounded by books and laughter, to people who had learned that love wasn't something you could buy or fake it, was something you chose. Every day to build together. The Yin did like this video. If the story touched your heart, subscribe for more emotional tales and share with someone who believes in the power of true love. And let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.